Welcome to Money Talks. I'm Cathy Yang, your intel on the And heading news today, the legislated wage hike bill hit a roadblock as the Senate and House failed to reach a compromise on both their versions. The Senate did not ratify the measure in its final plenary session last night, criticizing the House for belatedly passing its 200 peso wage hike bill instead of adopting the Senate's 100 peso version from last year. Senator Joel Villanueva said he urged the House to adopt the Senate's version after the House panel earlier expressed openness to it. But the House called for a bicameral meeting despite it being the last session day. Villanueva said there was no more time for a bicam and warned that the House's move could lead to the bill's failure and possibly a presidential veto. For his part, Senator Juan Miguel Zubiri, under whose Senate presidency the wage hike bill was passed, said he was disheartened by the House's move. He said that the 200 peso hike is too much for micro, small, and medium-sized enterprises to handle and blamed the delay on the House's insistence. Earlier, economic managers under the Marcos administration have warned that proposed nationwide wage hikes could do more harm than good. In a joint paper submitted to President Bongbong Marcos, the Bangko Sentral ng Pilipinas, Trade Department, and top economic officials said a 200 and 100 peso wage hike could raise inflation by 2 and 0.7 percentage points, respectively. This, they said, will reverse progress that brought inflation down to 1.3% in May. In light of this, they warned the poorest, especially those in the informal sector, will be hit hardest by higher prices. Meanwhile, the micro, small, and medium enterprises, which make up over 90% of local businesses, may struggle to cope with the added labor costs, possibly leading to layoffs or closures. Unemployment could rise by as much as 0.6 percentage points, with up to 300,000 people potentially losing their jobs. The officials also warned that a uniform wage hike ignores regional differences and could widen disparities, hurting investment in poorer areas. As for the economy, they said a 200 peso hike could cut the country's GDP by up to 1.6 points, possibly cutting it to miss its growth targets. With these, they urged the president to retain regional wage boards, which they say allow for fairer, more responsive wage adjustments based on local conditions. President Marcos has vowed to deliver a long-term solution to Siquicor's power crisis. On Wednesday, he visited the Siquijor diesel power plant in Candanay Sur, where repeated outages have disrupted daily life and hurt the local economy. As an immediate fix, the president said 2 power generators from Palawan will be deployed to Siquijor. He also stressed the need to improve fuel supply, develop transmission lines, and ensure all generators are running properly. President Marcos assured residents that the government is working to solve the issue permanently.
So for our short-term solution, yun na nga, yung dalawang genset, by 6 months from now, we will then impose whatever new arrangements that we have to do so that 6 months from now, we do not have to resort to the emergency gensets. Siquijor has to live up to its commitments.
Also Wednesday, the president declared a state of calamity in eastern Visayas to hasten the repair of the San Juanico Bridge. Public Works and Highways Secretary Manny Bonoan says they will gradually increase the allowed weight capacity of the bridge until it reaches the 12 tons mandated by the president.
Kukumpunihin na natin yung mga 3-tonner na segments and then increase it to 4 tons, 5 tons. And then eventually, matapos namin before December, magkakaroon na tayo ng about 12 tons load limit. So pwede na po yung mga bus, pwede na rin yung mga mini trucks na pwede na kumakarga ng mga perishable goods and everything para dito na sila dadaan.
House prosecutors insist the impeachment complaint against Vice President Sara Duterte meets all constitutional requirements. This came after the Senate returned it to the lower chamber. Batangas Representative Jervil Luistro said the prosecution panel is puzzled by the Senate's move and will seek clarification. On Tuesday, the Senate voted to return the impeachment complaint to the House, requesting certification that it does not violate constitutional provisions. Before the final complaint that ultimately went to a vote, 3 other impeachment complaints had previously been filed against Duterte. The Constitution bars more than 1 impeachment proceeding against an official within a year.
With respect to the first order about the certification pertaining to our compliance with the Constitution in filing the impeachment complaint, we maintain our position. Sumunod po kami fully and strictly to the requirements of the Constitution. We did not violate the 1-year prohibition rule.
House Prosecutor Joel Chua claimed the Senate's move was unconstitutional. For his part, Akbayan Party List Representative-elect Chel Diokno also questioned it, saying senators had already taken their oaths as impeachment court judges and were no longer acting in their capacity as lawmakers. With this, he called the move a clear, grave abuse of discretion.
How do you feel about that, sir?
Nakakalungkot dahil maliwanag naman po sa rules on impeachment na sila rin mismo ang gumawa na dapat sila ay aakto na impartial o neutral. Pero ngayon po parang hinaharang po nila ang demokrasya po dito sa ating bansa.
Well, yun na nga yung pinagtatakahan namin na kung pwede ba mag-file ng motion. I think the ball should be thrown back to the Senate. And the Senate should be, we should call on the Senate to conduct the trial as the Constitution commands. Inabandon na nila yung Constitution, and that is really a clear, grave abuse of discretion.
VP Duterte was impeached by the House on February 5th with more than 200 congressmen endorsing the verified complaint against her. She was accused of betrayal of public trust, culpable violation of the Constitution, graft and corruption, and other high crimes. Well, with us now for more is House Assistant Majority Leader Lanao del Sur 1st District Representative Zia Alonto Adyong. So good to see you, Kong Adyong. Welcome to the program. If you could admit yourself, Kong Adyong, we'd love to hear from you. You are indeed one of the signatories to the House impeachment of VP Duterte last February 5th. Now, we understand that the House prosecutors have decided to seek clarification in the Senate on the impeachment. What exactly is unclear in what the Senate did in the remanding of the articles of impeachment?
Well, basically it's actually tantamount to redoing the entire process. Basically, what the Senate wanted us to do is to certify that the 20th Congress would still carry on the verified impeachment complaints, which to us is a way of preempting what would be the decision probably of the 20th Congress. Now we're talking about the impeachment trial. You have two institutions working hand in hand in the process, meaning the Senate acting as an impeachment court and the House of Representatives as the prosecution. And so we simply would like to be clarified because as far as the procedural matters raised during the first day that the Senate convened itself as an impeachment court, the question arises from whether procedures have been taken in compliance with the constitutional provisions under Article 11, which we did, complied. We certified that there is no action taken as to the preparation in terms of the process by which the House of Representatives prepared the impeachment verified complaint. So we did the first order. We complied with the order of the court. As to the second, it's quite, for us, still ambiguous. That's why the House of Representatives, through the prosecution panel, wanted to be more clarified further as to what is really the intent of the order. Um, because to me, if you ask me personally, it's not a question. The Senate should have asked questions regarding the content of the verified impeachment complaint, rather than to generally questions about the entire process by which the House has taken, and in doing so, returning back to the House and asking us whether or not in the 20th Congress we still carry on with the verified complaints, which to us, if you ask me personally, and I guess the prosecution team has clarified yesterday's when they had the press con yesterday, that they wanted more clarification from the Senate as to what really is the intent on the second order.
Well, let's
So
base it on the Constitution, Kong Adyong. I mean, the House prosecution team member, San Juan City Representative Bel Zamora, was quoted saying that the Senate has no such power in remanding the impeachment complaint to the House. Where exactly in the Constitution does it say so?
Well, it's very clear, Cathy, under Article Section 5, if I may be may correct, no? So I think it's Section 5, Article 11, under the Constitution. It's very explicitly mentioned there that the domain, the exclusive domain to impeach an impeachable officer is within the exclusive powers of the House, and that we did that. And immediately upon, once an impeachable officer has been impeached by the House, automatically it will be transmitted to the Senate, and the Senate will convene itself into an impeachment court. And that is very clear under the Constitution, Article 11, that they will forthwith proceed with the trial. There is no section under the Article 11 that speaks about a possible remanding a verified complaint once it has already been taken jurisdiction of by the Senate. So it's a novel idea. All of us, when we were watching the Senate discussion on the first day when they convened and took their oath and wore their robe, it was a very noble idea, and everybody was actually perplexed while we were watching what transpired during the Senate. The court proceedings. So everybody was actually dumbstruck as to what would be the basis for remanding the verified complaints, sending back to the House of Representatives when there is no basis under the Article 11 of the Constitution that would give power to the Senate to do so. And so that's the reason why many of our legal luminaries, not only the prosecution team, but all of us ordinary Filipinos would really ask whether this is already constitute, according to Congressman-elect Diokno, who is also used to be a dean of College of Law in the DLSU, would this constitute a excessive discretion excessive abuse of discretion?
Do you agree with him that it does constitute excessive, grave abuse of discretion?
Absolutely, because if you look back at the Constitution, it's very clear there. So it's a noble idea. Even the senators themselves would agree. The reason, many of them, actually, this is not a unanimous vote, Cathy, if I may, there are 5 senators who actually did not comply, were not convinced of the possibility of returning this back to the House of Representatives. And so, on the question of procedural matters, questioning the constitutionality of how the House of Representatives prepared the verified impeachment complaints, they're exactly the same petition filed by the lawyers of Vice President Sara Duterte before the Supreme Court. And yet the Supreme Court has yet to issue a TRO. So there was no TRO up to this point. So meaning to say there's still a presumption of regularity. If you ask about the process, the procedural matters, it could have been easily it could have been easily answered by the prosecution should they be allowed and allowed to appear supposedly yesterday before the court. That's actually the reasoning of Senator Coco Pimentel. It's actually a very simple. We can actually issue an advisory to the prosecution team and ask them themselves, uh, continue on with the trial and ask them here in person or maybe in letter, in written form, whether such allegation of a violation of the Constitution was made during the preparation of the impeachment verified complaint. And so I guess I agree with all of the lawyers, the health prosecution panel, and we insist that we do comply faithfully, strictly with with the Constitution as to how the impeachment complaint was and the verified impeachment complaint were prepared.
Okay.
And so that's exactly, and if you, my guess is as good as yours. I think even you probably would be asking why the Senate had that novel idea and acted upon it, which actually would put us right in this very spot, which actually constitute, to me, probably a abuse of discretion.
Okay, well,
And
we'll leave it at that, Kong Adyong, and really appreciate for the clarity you give at a time of great ambiguity. Appreciate it. Thank you, Kong Zia Adyong of Lanao del Sur, 1st District. And we'll continue this discussion with our political scientist, Ronald Holmes, the president of Pulse Asia, when we come back. You're watching Money Talks. Welcome back to Money Talks. I'm Cathy Yang. U.S. President Donald Trump hails the progress made during the negotiations between top Washington and Beijing officials in London as both camps roll back the punitive measures that they have imposed against each other. In a Truth Social post, Trump said the two superpowers agreed to solidify the agreement reached in Geneva last month. After 2 days of marathon talks, the U.S. will lower import taxes on Chinese goods to 55%, 30% of which come from Trump's second term and 25% from his first. China's duties on American goods will stay at 10%. Beijing will also relax its restrictions on rare earth minerals and magnets, a crucial component for U.S. manufacturers. But the Wall Street Journal reported China will put a 6-month limit on export licenses. The move gives Beijing a leverage if trade tensions flare up again. The U.S. will step back as well on its threat to ban Chinese students from enrolling in American universities as Trump wages a war against college campuses. Other terms of the deal are still kept under wraps. Trump and Chinese President Xi Jinping will have to sign off on the London agreement before taking effect.
We made a great deal with China. We're very happy with it. We have everything we need, and we're going to do very well with it, and hopefully they are too.
He spoke to his trade team, who did a fantastic job negotiating this on behalf of the United States and meeting with their Chinese counterparts. The president is talking to them about the details of it now, but what the president heard, he liked. So the president is reviewing the details of that with his trade team now.
U.S. markets were muted this Wednesday after the trade truce between Washington and Beijing. Let's take a look at how they traded. The Dow nearly flat yesterday, losing a single point. S&P 500 fell by over 0.25%, and the Nasdaq declined by 0.5%. Benchmark 10-year Treasury yields inched lower to 4.413%. Gold prices slightly increased to $3,321 per troy ounce. According to the European Central Bank, gold last year became the second largest global reserve asset at market prices, surpassing the euro. Central banks in 2024 increased gold holdings by over 1,000 tons to around 36,000, nearly the all-time high of 38,000 set in 1965. And Philippine markets are closed this Thursday for the Independence Day holiday. PSCI ended Wednesday's session higher by over 0.5%, with all local counters in the green. As for the peso, it's slightly weakened at 55.885 to the dollar. Trading resumes tomorrow, Friday, June 13th. Let's head back to our top story, where House prosecutors insist the impeachment complaint against Vice President Sara Duterte after the Senate returned it to the lower chamber. Let's get the perspective from the academe now and speak with political scientist Ronnie Holmes. He's also the president of Pulse Asia. Good to have you with us, Ronnie. Thank you for joining us.
Good morning, Cathy.
So you're among a member of a faculty that from the De La Salle University who demanded that the 19th Congress immediately begin the Senate trial, impeachment trial, saying that the delaying of it erodes public trust and also mocks the mechanisms of accountability in the Constitution. So what is the group's reaction now to the remanding and the reaction of the House to that remanding of the articles of impeachment?
Well, I cannot speak on behalf of the group. We have not been able to discuss it, but I think my own personal reaction is that it is not within the power of the Senate to remand, although they have not used the remand term. It was part of the deliberation. It is quite surprising that, the Senate is asking for certification from the House that they did not violate the procedures in the Constitution. I say this given what we've seen in the past with regard to impeachment procedures that happen in the House, where the House can actually send an impeachment case to the Senate directly if they have 1/3 of the vote. Or in cases where there are so many impeachment cases filed, it's the incumbent upon the House to decide which among the articles of impeachment has to be submitted to the Senate. And that's what exactly the House in the 19th Congress did.
Well, it is indeed a novel, as Kong Adyong kept saying over and over in our conversation with him moments ago. Do you agree with him, though, and Chel Diokno, that this appears to be a grave abuse of discretion?
I agree that there's too much discretion exercised by the Senate. No, more specifically, let's say, on the additional consideration that the House should ascertain whether the 20th Congress, the 20th House Congress, the House of Representatives, commit to pursue this case. It's illogical, it's inconsistent also with the statements of the senators that they cannot commit the Senate of the 20th Congress to pursue this case. They cannot in any way control the 20th Senate, the Senate in the 20th Congress. So why is it that they're asking the House of Representatives, the incoming House of Representatives of the 20th Congress, the 19th Congress representatives to bind their counterparts in the 20th Congress? I find that inconsistent. They've said we cannot in any way control the decision of the Senate in the 20th Congress, and yet they're asking the House of the 19th Congress to secure or ensure that the House in the 20th Congress would push through with this impeachment case.
So much ambiguity there, and totally agree with what Kong Adyong had mentioned, but I'm going to anchor our conversation with that statement that you had posted on behalf of the faculty members. It said that the continued inaction not only erodes public trust, but makes a mockery of the mechanisms for accountability. What impact do you think this is having on public trust?
Well, I think we see it now. We see more people voicing out their opinions. We see rallies being held, protests being held right there at the Senate. It's simple. If you just simply allow the constitutional mechanism to secure accountability, which is the impeachment, to proceed, it's been delayed. If the Senate just simply called for the trial yesterday, and if they asked, for example, the prosecutors to explain to them yesterday what exactly was the procedure, there was no need to remand. There was no need for that motion to be acted upon 2 days ago. So in that sense, it's really, maybe they have their own reasons, but, from the perception of at least a number of people, including myself, it would have been prudent to just simply continue with the calendar. They've already done their work. They convened themselves as impeachment court. The Senate president took his oath as presiding officer. The members of the Senate took their oaths as senator judges. So it would have been really just appropriate for them to continue with the schedule in June 11 and ask the prosecutors, how exactly did you agree on what was the procedure that you applied before submitting this impeachment case to the Senate? You did not ask for certification, since they already decided that the House prosecutors would present in the Senate as an impeachment court.
As you say, you have yet to regroup with the faculty members of the De La Salle community to put out a statement or even construct your next reaction or feedback. What would you propose to that regroup?
I think basically it would be the same. It's a restatement of what we had the first time around. That's a statement not of select faculty members. It's essentially a unanimous statement on the part of the members of our department. It doesn't reflect the position of the university, although the Lasallian family has issued a statement that has a similar tone. So I'm pretty sure that it would not necessarily change, although of course it's subject to deliberation as to what wording we will use to really insist to the Senate, this Congress, and the next Congress that they continue with the impeachment, because this is a process that actually secures the right of the one that has been impeached to actually defend herself. And this is a process that will make it clear to the public that, accountability procedures in the Constitution are being adhered to by people who took their oath to preserve, protect, and adhere to the Constitution.
I appreciate your insights there in this very ambiguous moment. Thank you so much for joining us. Ronnie Holmes, Pulse Asia President and De La Salle University faculty member. And President Marcos leads the Independence Day ceremony at the Rizal Park in Manila. It's a national holiday today because of Independence Day. In his message, President Marcos emphasized that freedom is a precious gift that should inspire us all to work hard. He also called on Filipinos to value the nation's heritage and use these to uplift and safeguard the people. Aside from the one in Luneta, simultaneous flag-raising events were also held in other areas on Independence Day. In Bulacan, Senate President Chis Escudero graced the commemoration at the monument of Emilio Aguinaldo. Over in Caloocan, Interior Undersecretary Omar Alexander Romero led the ceremony at the monument of Andres Bonifacio. And before we go, History Hits Unwind. Heroes are back on the big screen as Independence Day celebrates on June 12. General Luna and Goyo, the Batang General, return to select cinemas for a limited run until June 15th. These films form part of the so-called Bayaniverse, a cinematic deep dive into our nation's turbulent past. The limited rerun sets the stage for the final act, Quezon, starring Jericho Rosales, coming soon. So if you are already ready to fight for freedom or at least a good seat at the cinemas, tara, sine tayo para sa bayan. Sino man libre? Happy Independence Day. Thank you so much for joining us. This is Money Talks with Cathy Yang. Trading resumes tomorrow, but for today, enjoy the national holiday.